Welcome to Issues in GLBT Literature. My name is Rachel Hansen. I'll be your instructor. The title of our module this week is Hazy Delight, Settling into the Idea of the Self. Now, if you're not sure what we're talking about, and that's fine if you're just joining us, we are doing this semester, we've been doing a guided reading of All Boys Aren't Blue by George Johnson and Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. And then also just get a journal article of the week to kind of tie all these concepts together. Now we'll be talking this week more, as we have been for the last 14 weeks at this point, about self-discovery. And we are starting with, I'm just now realizing I thought my books were by me, and they are, kind of just like looking around. No, they're not by me. Well, that's okay. But we're starting in with chapter 14 of All Boys Aren't Blue, which is called Caught in a Haze. And forgive me for pausing here, but I think that it's very fair to say that being a young adult, especially, does feel like getting caught in a haze. And I had to laugh as I was, getting everything booted up, ready for this evening. And I could hear my husband downstairs watching arguably one of the best Star Trek series in the franchise, Deep Space Nine, which I recognized immediately with that excellent theme music. Honestly, I think that the opening music for Deep Space Nine probably is my absolute favorite, just in the franchise. But I was laughing because I did compare, in the written module, being a young adult to kind of that moment in season 3 of Star Trek Picard, where the youngest members of Starfleet are all assimilated by the Borg. If you haven't seen it, would highly recommend it. And just in case you don't have it, I am putting the link to the written module here in the chat. Now, lucky for us, George Johnson, as a young adult, was not assimilated by the Borg, which frankly is pretty fantastic. But he was really starting to get to know himself as an individual outside of his family unit, which is what we've mostly been talking about for these last weeks. And now initially sinking into a depression after his first semester at Virginia Union University, he really begins to find community. And I want to pause for a minute just to talk about kind of that phenomenon of experiencing basically a mental health crisis the first time that you are away from your family unit. Whether your nuclear family unit is especially healthy for you to be around or not. And sadly, it's pretty common, right? So if you are kind of having that moment where you are in crisis, first know that while it's really crummy, it's not unusual, and there's definitely support for you out there. If you are in college, your college almost certainly does have like mental health counselors that can support you. You can access medication, which a lot of us, including me, are using to get by. So I just want to kind of touch on that. Uh, Now, for Johnson, finding that fraternity um, helped him, and I quote, define his own masculinity and kind of that more expansive view of masculinity that he's able to experience in Alpha Pi Alpha. Then kind of helps lead him into more of a state of self-love, which, I mean, frankly, I think is really great. I don't think that we realize just how limiting uh, our ideas of gender expression can be until we're in a space where we can kind of break out of those ideas a little bit. And I'm so glad that he and like many other young adults are able to find that space for themselves. Um, Now, for those of us in the room that are not young adults, which I think is fair to say is everyone that is here in the room this evening, um, things can still feel a little bit hazy. And so, one thing that I think is really good to take away from this chapter are things that you can do that bring you up and out of that haze. And of course, I mentioned just a minute ago that mental health therapy can be really helpful, medication can be really helpful, but also the idea of engaging in activities that I know are going to help me feel like myself, even if I don't actually feel like doing the activity. Um, and right, that might be like a different strategy for doing the activity. Now, and as an example, because I don't want to just keep saying the activity over and over again, um, you may be shocked to hear me say that I really enjoy reading, which I think is part of why I'm able to write such engaging modules for a topic that's important to me. But I have been in academia for so long that reading for fun is a skill that I kind of have lost. Which, like, really, what a drag. Like, reading for fun is fun. I am in I'm in a book club with the Tolkien Society, and we're reading, like over the course of this year, The Hobbit and the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. We're working on The Hobbit right now. It's been really fun. And I've read The Hobbit before, but I've been having a really hard time, like, just getting into it, right? Because I'm not reading in the way that you read for fun. I'm reading like an academic, and that can frankly be pretty exhausting. And so what I started doing is to listen to the audiobook while I am also reading the words on the page. That way I'm reading for fun. I'm kind of pairing up two activities together that I enjoy doing, and that's right, like that modification really is helpful. I personally really went off the rails there for a minute, right? But one thing that I would encourage you to think about, both in reading this chapter and just kind of out there in the world living your lives, is what activities can you do that help you to feel like yourself? Excuse me. Now we have George Johnson kind of, starting to settle into himself a little bit as a young adult, and moving into Zami, a new spelling of my name. We see Audre Lorde doing much the same, which, after her tumultuous childhood, teen childhood and teen years and young adulthood. It's frankly really just fantastic to see her kind of settle into herself. Right now, she is going to therapy. She's feeling content in her relationship with Muriel. And she's also like taking that time and space to figure out where she fits into her family and within her community. And I think one thing that really stands out to me as a reader is still that impact of her challenging early life coming now into adulthood. And that is kind of just that undercurrent of want. How she, and in my copy of the book, this is on page 226, but she touches on this in a really powerful way. And she says, and I quote, "Being women together was not enough. We were different. Being gay girls together was not enough. We were different. Being black together was not enough. We were different. Being black women together was not enough. We were different. Being black dykes together was not enough. We were different." And I think that feeling of otherness that that all of us experience on some level, right through our intersectional identities, the feeling of not enoughness, and being different it's ever present. It can be really challenging. And really that line between self-love as you settle into it, and kind of sitting in the, well, like, what if I wasn't different, can be extremely thin. And that can even change from minute to minute. So, I mean, really all of this to say, as much as you can, to be kind to others, because you don't know where they are in that sometimes minute to minute dichotomy of, I kind of have like this image in my head, and maybe you played this game as children as well, where you like pluck the petals off of a flower, right? Like, he loves me not. Like, that's kind of how I'm imagining this, right? Like, I like myself, I don't like myself, I like myself, hey, I like myself again. Right? Like, it can be a pretty rapid process. So really just something for you to think about as you're kind of going back and forth. Now we're on to our final piece of content here for the evening, which is, again, a journal article called "Feminist Perspectives on the Self." Now, this was written by Ellie Anderson, Cynthia Willett, and Diane Myers. It was published last summer 2025, in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Now, I say this as somebody who has written an article in an encyclopedia myself. They're pretty hefty reads, and as authors, they're tough to write as well. But there's one thing that they said in their encyclopedia piece that really it kind of helps us to hone in on this idea of self-discovery, and how we fit into communities, that I really want to focus on here together with you this week. Now, towards the very end of their encyclopedia entry, our authors state, as a social species, The most basic drives and affects of the human self are pro-social, not narcissistic or hedonistic. Maturity does not require objection, repression, or traumatizing discipline for social cooperation. The capacity for love, friendship, and cooperation with social groups characterizes humans as a biological species. Um, Now, one thing that really, even like within, right, like this paragraph that we're talking about, that really stood out to me was uh, the idea that being a mature person um, doesn't require really the shoving down of your own feelings. Um, right? Like how you express those feelings might change, but ignoring them is not part of like the maturity formula, right? Um, and I think that might have stood out to me um, because, as you may know, right, I am a parent to young children. Um, and maturity and like maybe sometimes also the lack of it is something that just comes up in my regular day to day. So there's that. Uh, but broadly, this idea really does stand out to me because it, it drives home an idea that I think that we all feel pretty innately, which is that we are our absolute best selves when the self that we can find within ourselves um, is one that can exist in a state of loving kindness um, with others. And I will kind of segue myself again here to address that word loving kindness. Um, Now, I don't often talk about like my own uh, faith and spiritual life in this space because frankly it's a little heavy and complex and this is the internet. Right, like we all have a choice in how much we share of ourselves online or really even in person too. um, but as I was writing this, I really paused for a good amount of time before choosing to use that word loving kindness because it's one that we mostly are familiar with in the society that we're living in now as a biblical term. Um, and the Bible can be a precious book to many of us, but it's also a book that has caused a lot of harm. Um, and so, like, I certainly felt activated when that was the first word that came to me in writing this. Um, but kind of sitting with that feeling really helped me to settle into what it actually means, which is the Bible is sometimes used to as a bludgeoning tool. Um, Loving kindness really is just an attitude of tenderness and consideration towards others. So, sometimes the opposite of what the Bible is used for. um, but really, as we are able to be the best version of our authentic selves, when I say settling in, I don't mean complacency, but I mean like becoming comfortable with um, that attitude of tenderness and consideration towards others. Um, like really is just so critically important to um, building a self um, that we like within ourselves, um, but also building a community that is one that we are interested in living in. Now, I have found it really rewarding over the course of this semester to see Johnson and Lorde grow this way through their memoirs. And I really do hope that through that example, that we are able to grow in this way as well. Now, as we are closing out this week, one thing that I really would like for you to sit with and think about is to consider what actions you've taken to discover yourself and to exist in that state of loving kindness. Now, I really am looking forward to being with you in your inbox again on just looking at my calendar here as ever. Next Monday, April 27th, and to be live with you here again, same time, same place, on April 29th. So I hope that you have a great week, and I will see you all soon. Bye.